Hello, impactors. It's common knowledge, right, that we can only go as far in this life as those whom we associate with, as well as conversations that we engage in. My guest today is Soji Oyawoye. He's a captain of industry in his sector with businesses both in Nigeria and in Ghana. We're going to be talking about his latest book, as well as three key attributes that we can look into in order to grow both in the business world as well as in our relationships. If you hear something that you like, be sure to take a note. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It goes a long way in spreading our message. So let's dive right into the conversation. See you in the house.
Like I mentioned to you in our previous discussions, I enjoy engaging with certain individuals that I feel are inspirational, not just to myself, also actually to people around us in our society, around the world. And backstory, like I mentioned to you before, I first came in contact with you through the training that we had earlier. So I love your book. Yes.
What is that in your hand?
Yes. What is that in your hand? So Mr. Soji, he is a John C. Maxwell certified coach and trainer. He runs multiple businesses out of Nigeria and Ghana. And not just that, he has published materials ranging from entrepreneurship guidebooks to how to stay happily married. His latest book, What is That in Your Hand, offers clarity on our purpose while guiding us to discover three key attributes for an impactful life. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Soji. Thank you so much for making out the time to be with me and be with us this afternoon.
Pleasure is mine, Stanley, and thank you.
Awesome. So let's dive right into it. Can you tell us what the beginning was like for you growing up? Were you always seeing yourself as, okay, I'm going to grow older and become an inspirational person and do businesses? Or what was that like?
Honestly, growing up, I had no clue. I'm not one of those that had any of those dreams. Later in life, it's part of why I went into personal coaching. I found that is because I was influenced by my environment and my role models. Because interestingly, all of us are products of three things: hereditary, the family we're born into, the environment we grew up in, and the role models we submitted ourselves to. My mother was a trader. My father was a civil servant, and they loved us and gave the best they could as it is. But in terms of career guidance of what you want to be, they didn't do much of modeling in that respect. And so by default, I also began to hang out with lots of people with little or no future ambition. So when you say, how was it? It was about from my secondary school or any university really, that my life began to take a change. When I met my wife, basically, because I married up, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So that began to change my perspective about life and about what was possible. Prior to that, I felt successful related to my environment. I felt very okay, but I didn't understand. I was measuring myself with what in itself wasn't much, rather than trying to be a better version of myself in prison. So I'm not one of those that say I thought of this earlier on. It happened by accident.
Lots of amazing things, I believe, start off at times with an accidental discovery.
Yeah.
I love a point you brought up, that marrying up, and also the people that you associated yourself around helped at a particular point with your view then, and then as you started associating yourself with brighter or more progressive individuals, that view and perspective started to grow as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know And I've seen it around also that that's part of the challenges that we have, especially I would say the youths, and not just the youths, but actually the generation in this country, most especially in Nigeria, in being able to go above where you are and associate with those who you would like to not necessarily be like, but like to understand where they're going, so you can see how you can guide your footsteps. In other words, having mentors and creating mentorships and your network. And now taking me back to your book, which talks about our identity, I believe when we start having a better understanding of who we are, then we can have a better understanding of who we need to associate with and to elevate up. In your opinion, what do you feel is, or how do you feel one is able to understand their identity? Is it something that we can understand, or is it a continuous learning process?
Yes, it's a continuous work in progress. But there's that famous saying that says the day you really begin to be, sorry, there are two important dates in your life: the day you are born and the day you discover why you were born. That's the beginning of the identity question. And the day to help you discover why you were born, which is your purpose on earth. In that same book, there's an acronym called BOATS, BOATS, that helps you find your identity. BOATS, BOATS. It's an acronym. Actually, I didn't discover it. It was written by Pastor Charles Achonwa of Doulos Ministries, and I just loved it years back. And this was part of what moved me to leave banking and start this journey that I started now about 16 years ago. The B stands for burden. What do I have a burden for? You know, things or processes that I pressed on me. Like some people have a burden for widows. Some have a burden for the less privileged. Some have a burden to help prostitutes get out of their circle. Some have a burden for startup businesses like I do. Right. Some have a burden for youths. So what do you have a burden for? That's a B. O. The O, what are the opportunities that you are uniquely exposed to currently? So by reason of your environment, where you have been and where you are, there's some opportunities that only you can feel and see. So you have to be conscious and observant. What are the opportunities for me being in Nigeria? The opportunities. Then the A of the boats, what are the abilities that I have? Innate abilities. I mean, usually if I'm walking on the road and people are playing football and the ball comes in my direction, I pretend not to have noticed it. But if I tend to kick the ball back to them, I'll fall down, you know? Because growing up, my parents never encouraged us to play football. So it's not one of my abilities. So what are your own abilities? But give me an opportunity to speak, to share my experience or to teach. I have natural abilities to speak and be convincing because I speak based on what I have gone through, no theory. Those are my own back. So some have abilities for makeup, some have abilities to cook, some have abilities for painting. So what are your abilities? Then T, what trials have you gone through, are you going through? A lot of times our identity is tied in our trials. Joyce Meyer was abused severally by her parents and her uncle. And through that, she began to speak, to encourage those going through similar situations. In trials, she found her identity. She's the best-selling female author, as it is. So trials, sometimes, you don't just pray and wish them away. Maybe God is leading you towards your identity that you didn't know. Right. Then, you know, it's both. The last of the acronym, both, S. What gives you greatest satisfaction? That they don't need to pay you for it. It's a natural thing you enjoy doing. And that's why when you ask me to have this session, you know, it gives me satisfaction because my purpose, I found out at age 35, my purpose is to enhance the capacity of everyone I come in contact with. To make sure by the time we are leaving each other, I would have rubbed off something, one thing, at least a new positivity. So I discovered that through what I have a burden for, the opportunities I see. This is an opportunity, for example, and I'm taking the opportunity. The abilities I have, the trials I've been through, and what gives me greatest satisfaction. So that's how you find your identity. If you've ever struggled with it, you go through that acronym, you will see a pointer to this is where I'm on earth. So that's why I left banking. Nobody sacked me after 19 years. I was already a general manager, but I wasn't fulfilled. The pay was fantastic. But I resigned to start what I'm doing now. And the first 5 years were horrible. But I didn't give up and go back to banking. But look at me today. Because I'm working in my identity.
Wow. Thank that acronym. It's a great acronym for us to be able to remember. And one thing that struck me as we're going through the acronym was also about what we ask for, especially when we're facing challenges and adversities. And there's this saying, we shouldn't ask for better days, or we shouldn't pray for better days, but we should pray for stronger sails in order to withstand the storm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, wow. And thank you so much for seeing our discussion as an opportunity to be impactful. And like I've always like to say, I believe we all have a story to tell, and we can gain a lot of inspiration through that if we can share it with people. The internet has made it so easy now for everyone to connect and tell their story, tell what's going on. It's a win-win situation at the end of the day. You also get goodwill, and goodwill is something you can put a price on. And so one last point concerning your book, that's when you hear influencer, or when you say influence, or be an influencer, well, you say influence as one of the attributes. Could you shine a little light on what that actually means to be an influence in not just your life, but in people's life?
For me, influence basically means you are like a step. It's a step for people to climb through, to also establish their own, discover themselves and be a better version of themselves. That's my own interpretation of influence. And that's why it's tied to your identity. So if I'm a life and a business coach, then my sphere of influence should be that everybody that also either intends to grow themselves, their lives, or their business, I should be able to influence them to achieve that by sharing from my experience and giving them an inroad into my own platform and my network. By doing that, my influence grows as it is. So for me, influence is not for you. It is your influence comes from your identity. Like I shared in that book, if I'm a cattle rearer, right? My identity is I'm a cattle rearer. My influence would be over anybody who eats meat, or over anybody who needs to use the skin of the cow to make leather or what have you. So if you are a vegetarian and you don't eat meat, I have no influence over you. Okay. You understand? So your influence is tied to your identity. That's why you start off first with your identity, and from that identity, you have influence over everything that speaks to that identity that you are. How I measure it is how many people has their life become better by reason of their association with me. How many businesses have grown and have become better? Then I have influenced them in that direction. So that's how I see influence.
Quite a profound perspective. And let's say you were 20 years old now, or maybe 25 years old. What would you do? What would a 25-year-old Soji now, knowing what you know now, if you were 25 years old, what would you do?
That's an interesting question because just a few weeks back, I shared something along those lines on YouTube. You know, what I wish I knew at 27, because I'll be 57 in about 3 weeks' time. So what I wish I knew 30 years ago. First thing is, I wish I knew that it's critical to learn to break the rules. To advance and grow in life, you need to learn to break rules. Because part of what keeps us constrained is society has the way of putting you in straight jackets. This is how to behave. This is how to do this. This is how to do that. But we all differ. So those that advance are those who break rules, not in a rebellious way, right? But there's no invention or innovation if you just conform. So I know that now, and I'm constantly breaking rules to create value out there. I wish I knew that earlier. Other thing I wish I knew at 20, in my early 20s, is to have discovered my identity. I discovered my identity at 35. Right. So if I discovered it earlier, that's 10 years earlier, I'm likely to have advanced further. Because that identity tied to it is your influence and your income streams. So I would have had a 10-year head start. Thirdly, I wish I had a better understanding of money. I also was brought up in environments that saw money as a bad thing. So I had poverty mentality that I felt, oh, you just work, save for the rainy day. But the reality is you need to understand that money first is like a stream. That's why it's called currency. It's always flowing. So I wish I knew, rather than just keep money in the bank, waiting for interest to grow, that you spend it, but spend it in a way that creates more money. I wish I knew that in my 20s. Then I wish if I could go back to my contented while striving. You understand? Because there's a hunger in my early days and most people to want more. And in wanting more, they fail to appreciate what they already have. You understand? So it's to live for today while striving for more. And lastly, if I could go back and advise to young people is invest in building your network. Your network is your net worth. Your network is your network. So you must consistently be clear. Who really are you associating with? Are there people going somewhere? But for most young people, they hang around their peers. So there's nothing motivating and challenging them. And in a lot of cases, they are the best in that class. So they feel comfortable. But you grow when you hang around people who are better than you, who are more driven than you. So they challenge you to be better and better.
Wow.
That's what I like.
Well, those advice are words to live by. And I'm happy that in my life, as you were talking, and I was kind of going through my mind, some things I also use as a mantra for myself and as a guide, that I can also kind of see it in some of the things you were saying and your advice. So I'm happy that, okay, so I'm somewhat on the right path, on the right path.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Okay, so finally, what's one person you feel that we should also get to know about, or a book that you like to read, or a book you would recommend for people to read? Who inspires you? Or what inspires you?
One of the best books I've ever read and I recommend is As a Man Thinketh. It's a popular book and it's very, I can't remember the author's name, but it's very popular. It's just few pages, maybe 30 pages or so. And As a Man Thinketh, because it's so profound. Because as a man thinks, so is he. Everything originates from our thinking. So I'll recommend for anybody read that book. And it's a very small book. The challenge, however, is our thinking is influenced again by who we associate with. So that book will open you up to begin to question some of your beliefs and who you associate with. Because if you don't change them, your thinking is who you will become.
Sure.
Right, because I mean, a lot of people are running away from Nigeria, Canada, America. I don't feel that because my thinking is different and I'm making it in this same Nigeria. And I'm not stealing, I'm not corrupt. It comes from my own thinking and who I've surrounded myself with. So that's one book. And other than that, my coach and mentor, John Maxwell, right, he has lots of books I would recommend because basically making you a better person and being a person of impact and influence. That's what John Maxwell teaches, how to make a person of impact and influence.
Those go hand in hand. If you're impactful, you definitely will be influential. If you're influential, you're definitely impactful. So it's a win-win. Like I said, I previously used to be in the hospitality industry. While I was there, I was still doing other things, and eventually I decided to fully focus and go on the entrepreneurship journey, become fully self-employed. And I've been doing that now for the past, give or take 3 years. Been a fantastic journey so far, ups and downs. And we're into property development, agriculture, and also building renewables. So, but yeah, this is something I'm very passionate about, having discussions with individuals that are making an impact in their sectors. And I really appreciate you taking out your time and your warm reception.
My pleasure, Stanley, and well done. And God bless the hustle and all you're doing. That's why I greet, because again, when I say everybody I come in contact with, I like to enhance their capacity. So, I mean, whoever you have access to that either listens to this and word of you, that is me through you also expanding that same impact. So thank you for the platform. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.